people. And that's the point. Today we have Anthony Kila as our speaker. He's a Jean Monnet Professor of Strategy and Development, a jurist, political economist, strategist, policy analyst, popular essayist, and the director at the Institute of the Commonwealth. He also serves as an international director of studies at the European Centre for Advanced and Professional Studies, a regular commentator on the BBC, is a columnist for the Independent, Telegraph, Europa, and Panorama. His articles and essays are also published in various new outlets. Educated at Cambridge, London, and Suffolk, he earned a first-class degree in political economy and further specialized in political anthropology, law, management, and public policy. Please welcome with me Anthony K.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy you were able to make it here again this time. I'm curious. What is political anthropology?
Oh, yes. That's a good curiosity. Political anthropology is a fascinating idea, say, study of combination of between politics and culture. Most of us look at politics on paper through tax and Conservative Party and Progressive Party. But there's a whole study that says, let us actually look at it culturally for us to understand it. So, for example, societies that have centuries of monarchy, they struggle when you put them in the Western kind of democracy because they're used to barbarism, as it were, because for those culture, the president, the governor is a father, not just one amongst them. And if you really want to understand those kind of things, you have to understand their cultures. Societies where there is a strong theological, religious influence will behave differently from a society that hasn't got such background. Societies where the consideration of women is different from what is prescribed in the Washington Western democracy of the past 70 years will not behave that way. And it's not a static thing. You know, the Britain of today is very different from the Britain of 200 years ago. And the idea is that history alone cannot understand it, but political anthropology can understand it. So it's a mix between power, politics, culture, ethnicity, beliefs, and people. It explains the underlying factors that people do not see. It's a fascinating, difficult study because it takes you round. But, you know, it's there.
Okay, very good. Is there any reason why you have not put on your video? Is that part of the anthropology?
No, I think that is part of technology, not anthropology. That is I think I'm on now.
I was saying to myself, maybe there's some political anthropology there.
No, that's technology, not anthropology.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. It works now. We sorted out so now let me deviate from our subject matter today based on what you have said. What is the anthropology of Nigeria's politics, or how do we put something in place that will suit our anthropology, and maybe we may be able to get some kind of political format that or leadership format that may work for Nigeria and possibly Africa. I'm not sure this Western type democracy is really working, or maybe we need to go back to parliamentarian democracy. I don't know what will work for Nigeria. What do you think?
Well, it's very, fascinating but difficult to say in a line. Clearly, what we have is not working very well. But part of the problem we have is that we've not even really practiced what we professed. You know, the Westminster Washington democracy that we profess to practice, we do a lot of things that are far from that. So you can't really say that system does not work here because you've not tried it. It's a bit like somebody who says he's a Christian, but they don't really pray. You can't really know, if Christianity is working for them because they're not fully in it yet. That's one problem. The other problem I think we have in Nigeria, which I do believe that we need to hold dearly, is that there are factors that are affecting our perspective, which we do not hold well. We, especially the leadership of Nigeria, refuses to brace reality. We create some words. For example, there's a very Nigerian expression, detribalized, which I've argued is one of the ugliest words in the English language. What is it to be detribalized? That's nonsense. We need to understand that Nigeria is a land of diversity, from the Ijaw to the Shakiri to the Yoruba to the Igbo, and embrace that diversity as a tapestry of richness and know that the Nigerian state should be a union of nations. The real challenge, the real aspiration that we should have is to be able to be different but equal in a way where diversity will only be richness. We should be talking about the flavors and colors of Nigeria, we should be talking about the 50 ways we can cook rice, 100 ways we can cook gari just in Nigeria, how we can fry the stew from, 500 different ways if we wanted to, not trying to pull everybody together. Because we're trying to fake what is not real, we have created a generation of liars. We have created, so you see politicians who, if you go to their profile on their website, they say detribalized, they say man of Nigeria. But when it's time for election, they insist on zoning and they insist on rotation. And all those things just shows weakness of our country because whilst from 1914 to 1960, 1966, the various attempts has been to build Nigeria. Nobody has really taken time to build Nigerians. And the way we tend to go about it of building Nigerians is to deny the cultural identity of Nigeria. Whereas I argue that the way to go about it is to create a state, a country that recognizes that we are a union of nations. There's nothing wrong in Nigeria aspiring to be like the EU, where you have the French, the Scots, the Spanish, the Italian, living together under one blue passport, their diversity protected, and their interests guided by, the majority of force, the shared number of a common currency and an agreed foreign policy. That's the way Nigeria should be thinking. Because we have people there's some parts of Nigeria, part of where I come from, the Yoruba part of Nigeria, where culture trumps faith. Culture trumps religion. There are other parts in this country where religion trumps culture. And there are other parts of this country where, and I say this very openly, where trade and commerce trumps family. There are other parts too. There's nothing wrong in that, I argue. We need a sort of very calm, wise mind that can look at reality and build it towards aspiration. That will be the good Nigeria.
So how come after all these years, 65 years of independence from the British, about 100 years of cohabitation as Nigerians with all our diversity, how come nobody has come up with a clear thought of what sort of form and nature and character and culture Nigeria really should have, and have us move gently or move rapidly in that direction? Why has that not happened? What do you think?
Well, partly because Nigeria has a story of individual triumph and collective tragedy. Individually, when you and I talk, when we talk in this room of over 100 people, full of ideas and full of interesting people, but when we come together as a collective, leadership emerges. And unfortunately, and here, it's a very tough, but we have to tell ourselves the truth. The kind of leadership that's emerged in Nigeria is a leadership that thrives on chaos, on problem, not on solution. The people we celebrate in this country, very few of them are known for the solution they've brought to us. They're just there. That's why you go to an office and some people have specialized in the process of making the simple difficult for the purpose of turning less than more. We do not have people, we do not know people. I mean, there's a real example with Aliko Dangote, who's known for his sugar and his refinery now. And even he carries the burden of suspicion of monopoly. But outside him, most people that most of us know, and I say us as citizens, are not known for solutions. You know why Bill Gates is rich and famous. You know why this person is rich and famous. You can see what they've invented. You can see the solution they've brought. You can see why Winston Churchill is known. You can see why Roosevelt is known. You can see why Gandhi is known. You can see what they've actually done. What we lack is that kind of leadership. So the leadership we have, you know what they've done? They've taken the shortcut at every time. Instead of talking program, policy, and people, they talk religion and ethnicity. At every given point, they've taken the shortcut. They've instead of raising the standard of our children, they tell people not to talk too much grammar. Instead of ensuring that everybody has a good understanding of mathematics, at least at all levels or at some standard, they try to eliminate maths for people who are doing arts. Instead of fixing the road, they buy SUVs. Instead of fixing the light, they want to buy generator. So that is the mindset that we have. I argue that what will save Nigeria is what I call the ANC, the Association of Non-Contenders. People who can get together for the sake of the future of history.
Can you repeat that? Association of what?
Non-contenders. People who are not interested in going to political office. Those are the people that can write the constitution. Because at the moment, the people writing our rules, every time they want to do it, they're thinking of how it will affect them because they're thinking of their party and their ambition. You need people who have their eyes on history, not political office. You need people who, without being called senator, honorable, or governor, their name and surname is what matters to them. And I must say, somehow we've not been blessed with that kind of mindset, but we need to encourage it. And that is why I want to thank you and everybody involved in this, because it is in this kind of forum that that kind of mindset can come up. It is not PDP, APC, Labour, needed as they are, but quite frankly, when it comes to partisan thing, you can't build. Partisan politics does not build a country. What builds a country is the people that are dedicated to institutions. And that is what is needed, and that is what is missing in our lives.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that statement. Partisan politics does not what?
Partisan politics does not build nations. What builds nations are institutions. It is not politicians. What builds nations are lovers of institutions that set the constitution, that set the guidelines, that protects minority, that knows that it doesn't matter where you are today. What matters is what is fair for all. If you look at people when they talk, Pastor Ito, I do this joke, it's a bit cheeky of me, but I do it. Sometimes I take my friends, I take a headline and I turn it around. I put APC instead of PDP. And they start to criticize it. Then I now turn it around and say, no, actually, the person who said he's a PDP person, they now change their mind. Because you see, partisan by its nature cannot be objective. It is a part. You need, the person who's going to build the house that all of us will live. That's not a matter of a part of us. It's a matter of all of us. And you need a moment in which we can suspend that partisan view to think of history, to think of a future that can help us. That is what has been missing so far in our life. If we want to talk about how to build a constitution, I'll be able to talk about it at some point because I'm very passionate about that. We need to look at it to say that the framework within which we all live is not a matter of today. It's a matter of forever. That is what is missing in the way most of our leaders think. And I want to be clear. When I say leader, I do not mean just politicians. I refer to teachers, I refer to academics, I refer to business people, I refer to the media, journalists, and allow me to say I refer to the church as well, because Christendom needs to be looked at as well. And I refer to our mosque, I refer to our community leaders, and to see the role they're playing in true nation building.
Okay, so I haven't got into this stage now in Nigeria and the way that we're in. How are we going to get ourselves out of this morass now? How are we going to push the right foot forward and get the people that you've described in terms of thinking to step out and help us build this nation? Since the partisan people in charge are not going to be able to do it.
Well, I think you are helping us with the first step. We need forums like this where we discuss this. Then we need the ideas. I call it three things. We need the idea, that's the I. We need the vessel, that is the people and the body. Then we need the vigor to do it. It's the VIV process, vessel, ideas, and vigor to carry it out. So at some point, we need to realize that this thing doesn't work and it's not worth it. Maybe it's grace, maybe it's charisma, maybe it's gift, but we need to find a group of people that are truly beyond the today, the partisan pettiness of I want to grab something. We need to find some people whose name matters more than position, whose future matters more than today, who are really interested in history than just temporary victory. And we need people who, when they talk, whatever they say, it stands in any circumstances. Not they say today because it's regarding somebody and they change their mind. The internet, social media is teaching us a lesson. You say one thing today and it will be brought out 10 years later. Then you have to, see yourself and who you are. That is what we need. We start from a platform like this. Then we grow it. We hope for, you see, luckily for us, they say we're 200 million people. We don't actually need 1 million people to do this. I have done some calculations and some regressions, and I believe that what we actually need to change Nigeria is 2,700 people. I'm very clear about that number. I have calculated it very well, to where they belong to and where they can do it. There are some impediments. I'm simplifying here, of course. There's some impediments, but I have no doubt that it is doable.
Who are these 2,700 people?
Yes, indeed.
Who are they? Who are the 2,700 people you think we need to?
Well, the 2,700 people that we
Nigeria.
need is the soldier of people of ideas. People who have ideas, people who have vision, and people who can give. You need a soldier of informed givers and people who believe that what they want in life is not the immediate thing. Who can, get who can get their reward from history. People who enjoy justice and fairness. People who see progress, general progress, as a good thing. But let me delve into one simple economic terms that we do not see, and I'm going to mix moral and economics, for example. We do not see most of the time, even our philanthropists and our socialists do not see most of the time that, for example, making sure that the public health system works, that the public school works, the state schools at a very low price, is beneficial to everybody because there will be less people begging you for money. If that can work, there'll be less people trying to steal in your companies. I see a lot of captain of industries there. Those staff that are trying to steal in your company is because they're so poor that they're forced to. Of course, there's a moral issue there as well. But if we think along the lines of, let us not just criticize and condone crime, but let us make crime redundant. And here the dreamer in me comes out. I imagine a society where we've taken so much care of the basics that crime becomes an aberration, where stealing because something that is done by people who are sick. Because really, you shouldn't need to, because the basics are covered, where your greed will be kind of pathological. But even live in a society where people suffer to eat. I've seen some young people, some not so young, where what the end cannot feed them. Well, you're either thinking anarchy or crime. So the 2,700 people we're talking about, mostly people who can have that kind of vision of what I call selfish generosity, to be good so that that goodness will come back to you, not to be held, to know that a safe, secure environment ultimately is good for you. So that, I imagine a society and I look at it that so that my boys, so that my little children do not need to be guided by policemen or security driver when they go out because the environment is so poor. So that we do not need to spend so much money in guarded estates because there are people out there, trying to get to you because they have nothing and you have so much. And we have to think that way. We have to think that if people are educated, then they will not only know their rights, but more importantly, they will know their duties, and there'll be a commonsensical sense. There's a lot of people on the road, I speak from my Lagos, who are more stupid than wicked. How can I be driving inside an SUV and somebody riding a bike? In Lagos, we call it Okada. And you're trying to bash me. Does it not occur to you that if anything happens, you riding on that bike are more likely to die? And maybe you bash the body of an SUV car. You can see that even the level of self-preservation has been so diminished that reasoning is the problem here. When you walk on our roads and you interact with people, you see people can answer a question straightforward. They can't give a yes or no answer because everything is about survival. Everything has to be contextualized in a way that it favors them. You ask people, where are you? They say, I'm not far away. What does that mean? I mean, where are you should be a location. But we've, sort of digested those kind of material poverty that is turning to intellectual poverty. And I'm going to stop here because I'm almost pontificating. But one thing I must say, there's a correlation with mix, and it's a very serious thing. There is a link between integrity and intellect that if we're not careful, we're going to lose. So that when Pastor Ituaigoda asked me, how come we've not been able to do it? Part of the reason why we've not been able to do it is that those who should be doing it are on survival mode. We have created the nation of poor, rich people with even billions in their pocket. Their mind is poor, their spirit is poor, and the way they even know how to enjoy life is still at a very basic elementary stage. They are still at the show off stage. They do not know how to spend millions on a work of art, how to wear a cloth that people would not notice if it's expensive or not. They do not know how to treasure in simplicity, in quietness. They still need to be hailed so that when they do something, they post it on social media so that people can see that they enjoyed. Those are the kind of issues that we have. The 2,700 people you have are people who will understand that thing and think of dealing with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was hoping you are going to either mention some names or mention some positions. But
Well, I'll give you one name. Ituaigoda. That's 2,700 minus one, and we can go on from there.
So you are looking at 2,669
At
now.
99. Yes.
All right, 2,799. Yeah, right.
That's
Okay,
correct.
no
Yeah.
problem. At least every journey starts with one step. I hope I tick all the boxes that you have mentioned. Our topic for today is the Constitution of Namibia and the lessons for Nigeria. I see you did quite a lot of work on the Constitution of Namibia. Maybe I should ask you, how did you get involved in that? Why would you do anything on the Constitution of Namibia? That's part one. How did you get involved in that? And then two, very, very, if you can tell us what the highlights of that constitution is that makes us think we can borrow some lessons for it for Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much. I think on a very personal level, I am a comparative person. I always, for everything I get involved in, I tend to see it from different perspective. I think, these things we're doing in Lagos, how are they doing it in Rivers? How are they doing it in Sokoto? This thing we're doing in Nigeria, how are they doing it in Finland? How are they doing it in Germany? How are they doing it in Grenada? That is part of what you get when you have a background in political anthropology, because you want to look around. But because I also, in my sort of mental, intellectual, and indeed physical vagabondage, because I dwell into law as well. So when you do constitution and you do international law and comparative law, part of what you get to do is to look at constitutions of various countries. And then that leads you to say, this problem that we've had, that we're having in this country, how is it done in another way? But I'm very lucky because I'm part of the Commonwealth Institute. We treat the world like just one big boat problem or space, so that once you have the basic, I belong to a bank of experts, the CAPS network, the Commonwealth network of experts. Once you have some skills, um, any country can call you to be part of their study once you're recognized as somebody who has done some work on that. So that has been the interest. I've done work on the constitution of Namibia. I've done constitution on the work of Eswatini. I've done work on the constitution of Lesotho. I've done work on the constitution of Kenya. So, I've been known to be a bit of busybody, as we say, not minding my business. And of course, the Nigerian case. If you ask me the way you have asked me, which is a very direct question, what is the highlight? What are we to take away from the Constitution of Namibia? The first thing is the origin, the genesis of that constitution. The Constitution of Namibia is what I call a constructive compromise, which I think, in my, allow me self-quotation, other people read of other writers who define constitution in various ways. And most of us, thanks to general education, we are used to defining constitution as a set of rules that governs the country, that indicates power, its distribution, its limits, and the management of power and the allocation in power generally. The rules and regulations that govern a country. There's nothing wrong in that. It's good, but I tend to go beyond that. And my personal definition, which I've written in many fora, is that a constitution should be seen as a social contract, a constructive compromise that holds together a country upon which a country is built. It is a compromise because various strands of ideas and interests, aspirations and concerns will be tabled. And out of that, you have a compromise, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. It is constructive because upon that compromise is the country built. Of course, when I say this, you can see the gap between compromise and construction. That gap is the bridge that links, that gets us to compromise and building the nation is dialogue, is deliberation. So when you ask me the highlights of the Namibian constitution, the first thing is how it was created. It was created to deliberation that led to compromise. It was negotiated. The people of Namibia came out to form their constitution after years of apartheid, discrimination, racial oppression, colonialism before that. So they had a clear mind of what a free world has to be. Part of the people that discriminated, part of the people that oppressed, were part of the new Namibia. So they had to find a way to live together in a new free world. So there was a lot of negotiation and deliberation that led to the compromise. That is a major highlight that you can see. Because of the way that constitution has been formed, and it is one of the most celebrated constitutions in the modern world, the Namibia constitution, that is. Part of the way it is, because of the way it has been created, it has become almost the identity of Namibia. February 9th in Namibia is what they call the Constitution Day. And on that day, there is, in my book, The Constitution of Namibia, the cover, and I want to thank Iken Anaba for that cover. The cover of that book is actually the symbol of the Constitution Day in Namibia. On that day, people understand that it is thanks to the Constitution that we have a country that is free, that is stable. And they look at the Constitution the way Christians look at the Bible, Muslims look at the Quran, because that is the foundation upon which the country is built. There's another point that makes the Constitution a lesson for others, starting from Nigeria. In the Constitution of Namibia, the fundamental human rights are justiciable, i.e., they're enforceable in court. We have a chapter 2 of Nigerian Constitution that talks about the rights of the people, the duties of government to keep us secure, to build roads. But you see, those things are a list of goodwill, they're good thinking. We hope they come true. But in Namibia, you can actually take government to court for not doing those things. You can enforce your right. And that's a very big lesson. That's a very strong point. And I stop here, back to the creation of it. There's one thing that we must take away. Because the Constitution of Namibia is a product of deliberation, consultation, and then that led to compromise, when the people of Namibia say, we the people, they actually mean we the people. It is actually true that is we the people. Whereas in Nigeria, we the people at worst is a lie, at best is a hope. I think those are very crucial points. And I've not mentioned the gender issue that they've been able to tackle in Namibia. Half of the parliament of Namibia is female, because they've been able to put that in the constitution as part of wanting to form a free modern world. Those are not little issues. I think those issues are what our interest, as it were. And we can learn a lot from it.
Well, but part of what they're saying really is that, yeah, to some extent, the Nigerian constitution can be tweaked, can be improved, but what is more lacking are the players and the people who try to implement the law and the rule of law. I mean, INEC, for example, is supposed to be independent. That's what the name says, Independent National Electoral Commission. But we know that they are far from being independent. We know that they have their own preference of who's going to win the election, or making the constitution say one thing, but the practice is not. I mean,
well,
it has become
well, I don't know if you can hear me. Can somebody give me a sign if you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Pastor's line is going off a bit, yeah.
Yes, his line is going up. Okay, well, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, the other person that spoke. Professor Bolaja Kemi is he just entered the room. Good evening, Prof. Good to have you here again. I think part of the problem we have, I must really say, when you talk about actors, is that we have the wrong actors in the wrong play. This idea, which I don't know where we got from, where we think legislator can manage the constitution. It's an aberration. The duty of legislator is to administer the government of the day. Let me be very banal about it and just take it to a level. Their duty is to decide the size of the dustbin we ought to be using and how much we're going to spend on our road, not big matters like the grand norm, which is our constitution. If we want to do a constitution, the first thing that we need to do is to have what we call a constituent assembly, a group of men and women who are not part of the administration at the moment. I argue that those men and women should also should undertake that once they do the constitution, they will not run for office perhaps for 20 or 25 years, so that they will not be interested in the matters of today. You talk about INEC, those kind of people who are thinking of the constitution, we build an INEC that will truly be independent. And I've said this before, so let me say here now. No matter who you put in charge of INEC, if they don't have the mindset, the clarity of mind, and the courage of voice to understand that a lot of people they're dealing with, i.e., politicians who are vying for office, are people prone to crime, then we're still going to have our problem. Because when we talk of ballot snatching and we talk about rigging of elections and we talk about violence, we talk about it as if they're accidents. They're not accidents. It's not that rigging happened to us. It's not that ballot snatching happened to us. That's a passive construction of a sentence. In reality, some people get together in a room to say, let us plan how to rig. Some people get together in the room and say, let us plan how to unleash violence. So the INEC of the future must be an INEC that knows that I am dealing with people who are either criminals or prone to criminality. And, we just make it unnecessarily difficult. There's an example I always quote, so I hope I'm not boring anybody. One of the things that people would like to steal most in the world is money. Because, raw cash, you grab it, you can't tell the color or the smell again, and it solves a lot of problems. And yet, guess what? Sorry, by the way, that's the third step. Second step, a place where everybody knows money is at the banks. The bank is full of money. And yet, people don't rob the bank so easily. You know why? Because bank managers, from their directors, they factor in the fact that they know that people are going to try to rob them. So they put in place structures and systems and processes that makes it virtually impossible to rob a bank. So we need an INEC leadership that understands that the vote I am told to manage will attract thieves, murderers, and violent people. And their thought at every step has to be, how do we make sure that does not happen? The reason why we're struggling is because we don't have those 2,700 people who are in charge of designating and managing INEC. Because, of course, the people who are, in a way, you tell the players to do the referee. They're going to see it from their view, even their coach, no matter how objective they try to be. So we need this association of non-containers to get that right and to build our constitution, knowing that the constitution is a house of all, not the convenience of a few.
All right. Can you also give us some other pointers as to the areas and the things we can borrow from Namibia that will strengthen the Nigerian constitution?
I think because of the way the Namibian constitution has been created, those who manage it are very clear that that constitution is a living document, not something written in stones. So the modality for amending it is very clear and very agile. The steps to be taken are very well laid out. They know if there is a case, it will be discussed in the parliament, it will be discussed in regions, and they have timelines. It has to be done very quickly. That is one thing, the amendment. Let me also mention two things that, since you've given me the time to say this, about the Namibian constitution that we can learn from. Number one is the language and content of the constitution itself. Unlike the Nigerian constitution, the Namibian constitution is very agile, it's very clear, it is concise. There are no limitations because they know that a constitution is not going to solve all your problems. though the constitution is not perfect, it is a constitution that embodies elegance through order. It is short, clear, functional. Nigeria's constitution, by contrast, is long, verbose, suspiciously vague. It reads, the Nigerian constitution, that is, read less like a social contract and more like a manual of exceptions. So what we get from that is that the constitution has to be something that is agile enough, concise enough, that people can truly understand it. And it doesn't try to solve all the problem. It only lays the framework for it. So language and content is important. But if I'm going to list, so let me give you 5 points, since you're talking about pointers. From Namibia, Nigeria can learn that legitimacy comes before legality. If a government, if a system, if a constitution is not considered as legitimate, there's going to be a problem of legality. And the way to ensure legitimacy is by dialogue and participation, so that everybody can see why we got here, why we have this kind of rule. There's so many laws in Nigeria that people don't understand why those laws ought to be. The other thing we can learn, which I've mentioned before, but I'd like to reinstate, is that we must make sure that the rights are not decorative, but they are enforceable. If we say that children should be in school, and we know that it is the local government or the state government that is in charge of sending them to school, every time the children are not in school, the local government or the state government should be liable to one form of crime or the other. So we must have enforceable rights, not just a list of rights. The other thing I think is very important, because we talk about restructuring, and I've heard some people, come publicly to say, well, restructuring means different thing for different people. They don't know what you mean by restructuring. Shame on all those people who say that. Shame for their mischief, shame for their ignorance when they say so. Restructuring is a very clear term. It means to readjust. It means to reset things. So if you have your interest and you're afraid of one thing or the other, that is something else. Don't hide behind the lexicon of restructuring. I refuse to admit that. I believe that Namibia can teach us how power can be shared, not hoarded. Namibia has managed a semi-presidential system of government from the constitution that allows the people, the government, the laws, the process to see precisely what powers belong to the local government, what power belongs to what we call the state government, what powers belong to the national or federal government, as it were. Those organs of government, those levels of government are empowered ab initio. They are fully empowered to be by themselves, unlike Nigeria, where the local government are at the mercy of the state government, and state government are at the mercy of federal government. So we just mouth federalism. And Namibia made it clear, and it is working. The other thing, which I'd like to mention before the last one, is that leadership must be limited not just by law, but also by culture. In Namibia, because that constitution was built bottom up at the moment of creation, because it was built through dialogue when it was being made, like a kitchen where you prepare the food, because it is celebrated every year, everybody is part of that culture of constitution. I struggle not to chuckle when in election days, you look at the people voting in Nigeria, in this great country of ours, and you realize that a lot of these people do not care, do not know about what matter is at stake. And then they do that, then we wonder why we get to where we are. If those are the people voting, what are we going to expect? Well, there are too many people in this country who do not have the civic sense. It is our duty to make sure everyone has it, whether they're going to vote or not, because it will affect them. And that is how to get a better country. The other thing, again, is stems from how it was formed, is the idea of diversity and reconciliation must be constitutional duties, not political afterthoughts. not something you jostle for during election. We must understand, as Namibia has understood, that the people who are going to be, you see, when they were going to form the new Namibia that came out of this constitution, they realized that the people who are going to be part of this new constitution come from different backgrounds. They have different anxieties, they have different aspirations, they have different kind of memories, they have different kind of pain that they've gone through. Because there were some people who were racist, some people who were oppressors, there were some people who were children of oppressors who are not oppressors. So their stories are different. There are some people who belong to the privileged world, but out of knowledge and conviction and conscience, they did not follow that path. There were some people who were children and family of the oppressed, but because of their job, like the police, they were tools of oppression as well. So the makers of that constitution realized this diversity, and they looked at the truth and they embraced it, and they said to themselves, let us build a nation that understands that diversity and reconciliation is a constitutional duty, not an afterthought, not a gift. I think those are very crucial things that we can take away from the Namibian constitution.
Very, very good. I think, and I like you're being clear and concise. So let me ask one more question, and then we're going to open up the floor for questions and answers. And I'm going to hand over to Sonny and Ebi to direct the affairs of that. And that is, having said all this, and I don't know if you've really studied the Nigerian Constitution very well, what do you think we should do in Nigeria to get a constitution that's fit for purpose in terms of both process and, like you said, one of the things you said I really liked was the language and content, that the Namibian constitution is very simple, easy to read, short, not too long, and it is elegant through order, whereas the Nigerian one is long and verbose. So maybe one of the things we should be doing is even changing the language of that constitution and the way it is documented in the first place, so people can easily understand it. So I'm asking you to guide us as to what do we need to do to get a fit for purpose constitution in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I believe that we need to first understand that amendments are useful, but they're insufficient. The first thing we need to do is to understand that we need a proper new constitution, and that to do that, we need an assembly constituent of real constitution makers. And those constitution makers need to do three things. Number one is that they need to bear in mind our past, what we've gone through, and the documents that have been created before then. The other thing that they need to do is that they need to consciously think of the kind of Nigeria they want to create. And this is linking it to our past. They look at our past very well, what we've been through, the ideas that we've had, and say, okay, what kind of future do we want? And then they will then link this kind of future, as you rightly point out, in a language that is simple, that is crisp, concise, and that does not try to solve all the problem. They should know that what they're building is not decorating a house. They're simply doing the framework, a framework that will be strong enough to contain all, and that will be clear enough to limit undue aspiration. And I like to quote John Rawls here to say that the good constitution will be made by people who can, in the process of making the constitution, can cover their face with a veil of ignorance, of not knowing the future, of thinking that we are majority today, we might be minority tomorrow. So let us make a constitution that we protect everybody, regardless of who they are or where they are today. That is the kind of constitution that we need, and that is the kind of process. And as I've said before, I will propose very strongly that those that will make that constitution should be people who are not going to become partisan people right after. So they're not building something that suits their immediate interest. Rather, it should be people who know that my place in history is to build a strong Nigeria where elections will be free, where government cannot override the laws, where nobody will be so powerful to be able to abuse others, and where everybody can aspire to grow as much as they can. And that will be their place in history, to say we did that, not anything else, at least not for like 20, 25 years.
Thank you so much. Before I yield my place here, we've been having this mention of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Two things I want you to look at. Do you think the government that we have, as we have, and the people in leadership and governance, do you think they'll ever be able to push themselves or encourage themselves to a place where we can have this new constitution and an assembly of new constitution makers that will have the tone and the thoughts that you have mentioned? Do you think that is ever going to be possible? And if it is possible, what do we do? If it is not possible, what do we do?
Well, I think the two questions are wrapped in one. I think it is possible with this group of people, because if they don't, their disappointments with their past and to their integrity, starting from President Tinubu, who, years ago has been a strong advocate of a new constitution of the federal Nigeria and a restructured country. So there's no reason why they shouldn't do it. This group of people. But I don't rely on people in power. I think we, the people, should push for it, not wait for them. And I believe that we within people can do it. We just need to, as they say, we need to agonize less and mobilize more, and make sure the narrative is out there, it is pushed. The Patriots, a group I belong to, has done a lot in that direction. I think more needs to be done and more can be done. We just need to keep talking about it every time. And I say, although the Constitution is not an election matter, I think we the people can make it an election matter. We can make it a point in every conversation that we raise. Because the truth of the matter is that, unless by grace, if an angel comes to rule this country, because of the structure itself, because of the interest, they're going to struggle to do well, because of the way the whole system has been shaped. Well, that is not an excuse for them not to do badly. It's just that, they will do better if there's a good constitution in place. So we the people need to push for that and remind those in power what they were saying 10 years ago, what they were saying 20 years ago. But then help them to get it done.
Thank you very much. That is very, very lucid. So the other question I wanted to ask before I hand over is this country of particular concern. I don't know if you have any information on it. What is the big deal about it? Why is it such a hue and cry? And what does it really mean? By the way, next week we are going to be dwelling more on this issue. We're going to be having a Professor Robert Destro, who is a professor of law and former Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, going to be talking to us about Nigeria, a country of particular concern, and what's its implications, both for us here in Nigeria and for people looking into Nigeria from outside Nigeria. But for now, I want to get Professor Kila's thoughts on this issue that has just been all over the waves for the last couple of weeks.
Well, yes, I mean, it's trending, as they say, rightly so, or should we say meritoriously so, because being designated as a CPC as a country of particular concern. By the way, it's an American peculiarity that they have to say that in the world, when a country behaves in a bad way, quote unquote, either because they oppress their people or because they commit any kind of untowardly act, we should consider them to be a country of concern, because they are violating the principles we hold dear, like the freedom of religion, freedom of association, freedom of expression, and upholding the free market. We should consider them as a country of particular concern. Because America is, that big, that strong, they can afford to say, one of the things we might do if we consider a country of particular concern, from America's point of view, is to either threaten to or eventually suspend the aid they're giving to those countries. Aid is one thing. They might go to the point of suspending the trade they're giving to that country, or they're doing with that country. But before they even get to all those things, just to be labeled as a country of peculiar concern and then justifying the reason why is a bad thing for any country. Because at the moment in Nigeria, regardless of what we're saying, if there's anybody like I do with my trade, I consult a lot on joint ventures and internationalization. And if you're trying to pitch Nigeria for any kind of partner, for any kind of venture, for any kind of collaboration, a country that's just been listed as a country of particular concern does not stand well. The first thing you need to do is to try to diffuse that. So what do you say to them? Oh, it is not true, we're not killing Christians, or it doesn't happen in my part of the country. It doesn't help at all. So to that extent, it's a bad thing that is happening. It's embarrassing. And it is not the first time. We've had it before, years ago. And the effects, when we had it,
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get the last part of that.
I think when we had it the last time, it was the effects were negative. The impact was not good. So we're not new to it.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Sonny, let me hand over to you and see if there are people who have any questions of particular concern on this forum at this point in time.
Questions of particular concern. We don't want that. We don't want them to take over that as the main topic. That is for next week. Professor Bob Destro will be coming to speak about that. But I'm sure some people will have questions for Professor Kila on that. So thank you very much, Pastor. And thank you very much, Professor Kila, for talking about the Namibian Constitution. Let me ask, why do you think the Constitution in Namibia is working? Is it because of the composition or how it's written, or the people practicing or implementing the Constitution?
Well, I think to the point, we're going to be giving bullet point answers there. I think for three reasons. Number one, because of the way it was conceived. It was conceived through deliberation and consultation, and people really feel it is their constitution. Number two, it is because of the way it is lived. People really see that constitution as a guiding light for them. It is something they adore. It is so important that every year they celebrate it on a day called Constitutional Day, and they review it, they talk about it, and they reminisce on it. Number three is that because, and these things are all linked, because it was built on consultation and deliberation, because it is lived as a living document, it then makes it difficult to breach it, because everybody knows that you shouldn't do that. So a good example is that the Constitution is clear that you have 2 terms. So if anybody said they want to do the 3 term or the 3rd term, it becomes an aberration straight away. So that is part of the reason why that constitution will work. You might want to have the 4th reason where certain principles are actually enforceable in the court of law. So those are very important reasons why they work as it were.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We have a few hands up and I will take them. I'm sure you've been here before. The way it works is we can group 2, 3 questions depending on if one person's question has A, B, C, and some may just be a comment. So I don't know whether you have a note or I should help you take notes.
Well, every help is welcome. Yeah,
all right.
I'm a
so I'll start with
boy that always want help.
All right, that's good. Professor Kome will be the first, then I'll take Funke Awolowo and then Kachi Okeze. Those 3 will go, and then I'll take another set of 3. I can see all your hands up, no problem, everybody will be taking. So Professor Kome, allow her to unmute, please. You can unmute now. Professor Kome, you can unmute and ask your question or make your comment.
Okay. All right. I wasn't able to unmute immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have to confess, I didn't come for the whole presentation, so forgive me if I ask or make comments about something that you had conclusively addressed. So thank you, Professor Kila. I'm just wondering about size. Nigeria as compared with Namibia. This is a country of like 3-point-something million people, right? And Nigeria has the largest population in Africa. So I'm wondering how this is a good comparison, But by the time I came, you were talking about the Constitution. And I want to say I've been to Namibia, I wasn't impressed because all the Namibians I saw, except for the, government officials, I was in this resort. The Namibians were the menial workers. The people who came to enjoy the resort were Europeans, Germans, South Africans, and then the only Black people that were enjoying the facilities were the people who came for the conference. And then I traveled around the capital, and it was very dismal, like, in terms of how people are enjoying the dividends of democracy. So that part of it, is that something that Nigeria should, aim for also? If there's a democracy, why would South Africans be controlling almost the whole economy of Namibia? And they came and replaced the Germans. And actually, there's a lot of displeasure by Namibians over this matter. So there's the matter of economic, who controls the economy. There's also the matter of politics that, I know in terms of press freedom and some other things, Namibia is doing better than Nigeria. But it seems to me, if you look at the indexes, that Namibia's performance is only marginally better than Nigeria's. So do we not have other examples in Africa that are better than this, that can really be more, like robust comparison? Then finally, the matter of language. I don't think it's a matter of the simplicity of the English language, but are Nigerians able to understand our constitution in our own mother tongues? I think that is what should matter to us. And it doesn't seem to be something that, elites consider, because we take English as the lingua franca, and many of the people in the legislature cannot even handle this language successfully, not to talk of the populace. So, if you could respond to some of that, I would appreciate it. The matter of the country of concern. I think it's ironical that America, being as messed up as it is right now under Trump, is saying that Nigeria is of special concern. American democracy is in trouble. Values are not being respected. This government is considered to be authoritarian and fascist. So how is it going to come and rescue Nigeria? And where has America gone that has been favorable to the country in terms of what people want out of their lives? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Professor Kila, just hold on. You will take any part of that question you like.
Yes.
Pastor Funke Awolowo, go ahead. Allow her to unmute.
Good evening. Good evening,
Yeah,
everybody. Good evening, Prof, and very well presented. I want to mention, I know that I also belong to that group, the Patriots, and we've been to and fro to Abuja trying to do the presentation. But my own view is that what is going on is like wasteful duplication, especially after we've gone through confab, and I think we had enough opinion in terms of diversity for us to have made it into law by now. And are we going to, is what's happening, what we are presenting as patriots? I know I got involved with some of the debates and all that. Is it a continuum, or are we just going to start all over again, which I think is wasteful duplication? Also, I know that Namibia is not doing too badly, because I also belong to a church. We had to go there to start a ministry because the level of suicide was high, really high. Even children of the very rich were killing themselves because it was increasingly becoming a hopeless society. So there's a cause. The reason for writing the Constitution and rewriting it, it's a reason because people have to survive, and I know it's a step in the right direction. That's my opinion, and that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Funke. Great.
You're welcome.
Kachi Okeze, I'll take these three and then we can respond to them. Kachi Okeze, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Did you disable the video? The camera, yeah? Did you disable the camera?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes,
fine. Yeah.
yes.
Good evening, everyone. Professor Kila, I follow you all the time on Arise with, on your Sunday commentary. I do beg, though, despite this being a very detailed, meticulous, and well-presented paper, I think that there's an issue that I have here in terms. I'm a lawyer. I'm also a constitutional lawyer and a commercial one as well. In 2020 and 2021, after COVID, I served as a consultant to the Senate Committee on Constitutional Reform, and I finished my tour about the end of the beginning of 2022. I'm joining you from the UK. You see, one of the things that I think we get wrong is that, in my view, we measure on the wrong things. Our problem, in my 35 years of practice, I've observed that our problem is not with laws. It's with the people. We have some of the best written bits of legislation covering various spheres of life in Nigeria. And I'm speaking as someone who's been involved in drafting, as well as an advocate and a commercial lawyer as well. So that is not our problem. We have a way of doing what my late father used to call excusitis. We just make excuses. The Constitution is not the issue. I've been involved in the movement where they came up with, let's return to 1963 Constitution, that was the best iteration to go back to. And I say no, purely on the basis of logic. If it was the best, why did we lose it? It resulted in a war, in the crisis in the West, which ended up, into a coup, and then all of that instability. You still had what you call the perfect constitution. It didn't work, and we came to where we are. In terms of what we do now, I think that our problem, and we like to deflect and divert, our problem is our people, the human being, the quality of the human being. It doesn't matter which way you look at it, it expresses itself in its vileness and its vanity. If you go to, we're the most religious people, some people say, but we also commit the most crimes, and we have the worst run society in the same place, cohering together. And so my suggestion is, rather than focus on the Constitution, Namibia is doing what Namibia is doing, but that's fine. There's no basis, like the last speaker said, there's no basis for comparison between Nigeria and Namibia. So I don't begrudge them what they have. Malawi has another very good one. South Africa has a good one. But the point is this, practically speaking, we can't even do anything about what we have now. In my view, the Constitution we have now, I think all the effort and exercise about changing it, restructuring and all of that is just completely misconceived. Section 9 of this Constitution shuts the door to all of that. I have followed the Patriots. Section 9 says you cannot do what you want to do until you amend Section 9. Section 9 permits us to alter our constitution. It does not contemplate the making of a new one. So who is going, under what framework, legal framework, are you going to create a constituent assembly? Who's going to authorize it? It has no legal validity. And so let's come back to building people. That's our problem. I'm in the UK. You have elections here. Nobody snatches ballot boxes. And you get results. Nobody goes to court. The system runs and it doesn't have a written constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Prof, you can respond to all those if you still remember what they are. But if you miss out anyone, I think I can chip in for you.
I'm sure
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be there. Yes, I'm sure you'll be there to determine. So let's take it this way. I think it is true that Namibia is a country a lot smaller than Nigeria. It is a real difference. But to say because of the size, they're not comparable is not a good example. Because whilst we imagine that small equals to easy to manage, is not true. Eswatini is even smaller, but it's not as managed as Switzerland. And it's not as well managed as bigger countries. So the size issue is there, but it's a convenient excuse to use the barrister's expression. That's another excusantes of the Kacheoke's family. I pick up that quickly because with Nigeria's large population and diversity, we should be leading the world on how to manage diversity, and we're not doing that. So that is the real issue. It is important to separate economic issue from constitutional issue. They would link at some point because access to aspiration and possibility of expressing oneself, constitution guarantees that in many cases. So that's important. But or just on the surface, the good constitution does not automatically mean everybody will be taller, more beautiful, and happier. It doesn't mean that way. It will help, but it doesn't mean that way. And yes, if you go to resorts, you're likely to meet foreigners there, just as a rule of thumb. That will not be a big measure. I think that the real measurement is to see if the teachers, doctors, and lawyers are also foreigners, or the photographers are also foreigners or not. I think that's an important thing. You say because America is always in trouble, how can they be concerned about other people? That's a paradox. The more reason why, because the Trump government has a philosophy, all what the orange movement, starting from Trump's head and face, is about strength. It portrays strength, and it is logical that they want to be seen to be strong at home and abroad. At home, against those who do not align with them. Abroad, against who are seen to be against those values as well. I think I would not dwell so much on that CPT thing. All I can say is that it's a complex issue because it is true that people are being killed in Nigeria. But if you have respect for words, you have to think twice about the definition of genocide. Genocide as a deliberate act to wipe out a whole population. But it is true that Christians are being killed. It is true that churches are being burned. You can add that Muslim as well, but that's a very sad excuse to make for your country and for yourself. It just shows that people are insecure. It is also true that a lot of people ruling us today have gone out to express that view before because they were in opposition then. So, sometimes you reap what you sow. I think they just need to act now and talk less, is what I'll say. In terms of the language, there's this debate, going on about do we even understand the English? Do we understand it very well? No, I think let us start from a concise, crisp English language constitution that is deliberately made to be understood and to be lived, not to be quoted, like the way some lawyers do, where sometimes... okay, let me put it this way so I don't offend anybody. I think there's something in Nigeria which will pay too much attention to law and little attention to jurisprudence. I think it's important that we learn to understand the philosophy of law, the history of law, and to know what it really means, rather than just applying it like artisans will do or like not electricians anymore, engineers, they would do about very technical things. I think we need to add that to it. If we can deliberately tell ourselves that what we want is a concise, clear constitution, first in English language, then it will become easier, I bet, to translate it to other languages as well. But this I can say to you, most of the people that can read the constitution in any language, whether it's Hausa, Yoruba, or English, if they can read it in that language, they tend to be able to read in English as well. The generation that could read in only one language and not in English, I think is gone or going at least. A call about the activities of the patriots, without being very parochial about it or bringing family matters out. Let me just say, I endorse the view that the patriots do not want to start the world from zero. It's a continuum. Any intelligent gathering, we know that you don't throw away what has been in the past. You look at what we've gone through, what we've tried to do, what we've achieved, and you try to build on those three things. So the Patriots point would be to that. Then to the legal framework, the legal tools for which a new constitution can be done. Well, we have studied this, and the idea is that the parliament itself can request for a new constitution to be done. The president can ask for the parliament to do that. Whether it has been done before in Nigeria is not really an issue. The real issue is that if majority of Nigerians agree that there is a need to constitute a constituent assembly, I believe that our concern should be how to make it happen, not to say it is not doable. And then to the issue of people, of course I agree with you that people matter a lot. You make all the best of them in the world, and there are bad people, they're going to violate it. But I think it helps if before the people get there at all, if there is a clear concern, a clear agreement of what is good and what is bad. The reason why, so if we use the Bible or the Quran, for example, we know what the laws are. We know what is expected of one to be a Christian. Whether they follow that law is another issue. But because we've identified it with a moral or religious code, in the case of a constitution, a civic code, or a social contract, because we've identified it, it allows us to now point out that aberration. If we think the constitution is okay and we just focus on people, it will not allow us to identify aberration. This constitution as it is does not allow, for example, enough decentralization, devolution of power, decentralization of process. It does not allow it. A new constitution, if we go into that room thinking that we need to decentralize, we need to devolve, and ideas say we need to digitalize, that mindset would help us, I believe, achieve more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. We'll take the next three now, and I will just plead that we should keep it short and straight to the point so that we can take everybody and we can finish quick. Michael, Ego, Antiye, Misiram, Samkuti, get ready. Additional Fagbe Nru, and then after that, I will take Adetutu, Nimi, and Raf. I think those will be the only people I'm taking. Raf, yeah, and they're sliding. So, Michael, Ego, go ahead. Please keep it short and straight to the point so that we can get in more people. Michael, have you unmuted? Unmute yourself.
Good evening, Prof. And thank you for the time we've taken. And I wanted to ask myself earlier, say, when you're talking about Namibia, you're Namibian, talking Nigerian constitution. I think you even seems to know the constitution more than most Nigerians, but obviously you're also Nigerian. So yes, my consign it will be on two fronts. When Pastor talked about INEC, and then I actually wanted to jump in at that time, but I had to control myself. So when we talk about INEC and people that make up of INEC, people that make up INEC having a certain mindset, have we considered how the appointment into INEC has been done, or how is carried out? Now you have card-carrying party members made INEC commissioners over time, both resident electoral commissioners, the party in power appoint members of their party, not just dormant, but very active members of their party into these positions. Yes, it's called Independent National Electoral Commission, but the appointing power is resident with it. Anybody who is in office, and when the person gets into office, the person basically appoints their own people. I think in terms of what I call reforms, where it should start, because until that is dealt with, we don't need to appoint anybody really. We don't just need elections. We just have to just let the party in power continue to do what they want to do. So my question would be, what can the people do to ensure that the way the members of the National Electoral Commission are appointed changes? Because that's the only way you can get independent-minded people, as you said, and people that have a different mindset. You can pick them from anywhere, Nigerians from all over the world who really want to do well by Nigeria. But if it continues, this is the only way it can. We don't have a choice. That's what it looks like. That is my first part. And then the second part will be the same thing. We talked about the Constitution. Our Constitution has limits, right? As a young man growing up, I know that I've seen a lot of constituent assembly being organized, and then you have what they call no-go areas, ab initio. So there are things you're not allowed to discuss. When you go for the constituent assembly, they say the ones the military has done as a student, we've seen that. Even the one under the when we
Brother
went
Mike,
to the
can
Fourth
you please
Republic.
can you wrap up quickly so that we can move on? I'm sorry, not to cut you, just so that you can just land on the question and
Yeah.
we can move.
So
Thank
when
you.
we look at that, so how we're able to, what mechanism do you think we can use to get to organize a constituent assembly where everything is on the table? Because I believe strongly, if everything is not on the table, then whatever you do is not a constituent assembly. So what other mechanism do you see in the Constitution as you've read it that will enable us convey an issue as constituent assembly where we can discuss everything?
Okay.
Um,
So thank you
yeah.
very much. Thank you. And here, Mr. Somkuti, thanks. You are muted already. You can go ahead with your question. Yeah.
Professor Kila, good to see you. Good to see you. Struggling on as always.
Yeah, same like you, just like you, almost as good as you. Except you look prettier as you struggle up.
Anyway, don't let me cut into the time of the ALG. Thank you, ALG, Pastor Sonny. Always good to have this opportunity to judge instead of killing people and warring. Few questions. You talked about 2,000 plus people that could make a lot of difference in the country. Can the Patriots identify these 2,000 people and begin that conversation of, the kind of changes we want here and there, constitutional and all other matters that could lead to the kind of change we want? That is number one. We know that the constitution is not likely to change before the next election, even if President Tinubu is interested in a totally new constitution. He's not likely to do anything before the next election for obvious reasons. What you think can be tweaked? Some critical 1, 2, 3 things that we can tweak in the constitution we're running at the moment that could make some maximal changes difference. 3, do you think a one-party state could even work in Nigeria? Because that seems to be what we're trending towards. All these parties will fold into one. And maybe we haven't really tried it before, apart from when Obasanjo was there. Is it possible that if we say we're one family, we're brothers and sisters, that's what we want to be, we would work better and be, more productive if we're all in one party, and we can, contest with ourselves within our family, which is the party that we have. Maybe that is the culture we have, and it might work better. What are your thoughts on that? Because China is like that. Singapore is more or less a one-party state. And, let me have your views on that. And finally, I like the point that you made about citizens' involvement in the process of constitutional development. And I think this stakeholder engagement from the bottom up is so critical to, creating ownership and consensus around development, whatever it is we want. How can we institutionalize stakeholder engagement so that it's compulsory that at local government level, the state has to organize? I think they have something like that in Rwanda called the Kotla. And no, Botswana, not Rwanda. So, is this something we can legislate and institutionalize that would, create that consensus, that joined up thinking that we're looking for? Once again, always good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you very much, Professor Kila. You can see that my job is very tough. No matter how hard I try, I can't get the people to speak for 1 minute or 2. Let me take additional Fagbenro final in this first set. Please, if you can keep it very short, just one question, please. Thank you. Unmute yourself. Additional Fagbenro.
Mute myself, but to tell me that I should keep just one question, it cannot happen. Let me just, I will do my very best and respect everything. Number one, for Nigeria to be great, it cannot be in denial of its origin. It is not how bad you start, but how you respond, how you grow, and how you respond to some people who were born poor, they overcame and they became rich. Some people were born in very ugly circumstances. Nigeria is similar, right? It may not be ugly, but we're highly diverse, highly diverse. It's a nation that was forged together. Now, you will notice that one thing was that we have the diversity, we had different understandings, different levels of patience in terms of growth of the different parts of Nigeria, and a different understanding of the gestation period that development needs to take. And therefore, that is where initial conflicts started. Now, so if you identify the lacuna, right, in terms of how we have been building a nation, 3 things have been significant. Failure to manage diversity, failure to manage and accept succession, because some people think they will live forever. Then the third one is failure to manage conflict. In terms of the Constitution, my question is, why many people say the 1963 Constitution, and with all due respect to my learned brother who's in Britain, people say the 1963 Constitution is what they prefer because it was the one that had the highest score in terms of ownership. For a document, for a constitution to work, there are 3 factors: ownership, the management of the constitution, and the control of the nation. In terms of ownership, how do you commit yourself to what you don't believe you own? You can't force people. Even if we are going together in the same direction, we don't need to hold hands. In Britain, yes, they don't have a written constitution, but they teach their children history. They teach history. Britain is very jealous of history. A primary school student in Britain knows about the Magna Carta. They also have monumental documents of precedents. And these things are taught way in, way out. All we do to transfer knowledge in Nigeria is transfer of anecdote. We continue transfer. So narratives, as the years go by, the narratives just continue to bifurcate like the delta. My last question, or my main question, however, is that in all this, why don't we have a clause for referendum? Because the only thing that tells you that you are free is that you have a referendum in your constitution. The ability to say yes and the ability to say no. So my concern, and what I'd like you to take a look at, is that impatience. We were barely 6 years after independence, when people thought that it wasn't working, and they planned a coup. And we've had series of coups, and people who are, but imagine there was no coup in the first place. Tafawa Balewa would not be alive today. If there was no coup against Shagari, Shagari would not be alive today. I mean, he would not still be in power today. So I think we actually have to really check ourselves out in terms of how we manage diversity, in terms of how we see ourselves, in terms of how we, manage succession, conflict, and the likes. Well, I try to be as short as possible. Tony, I didn't say hi.
Thank you very much. That was very short.
I read your mind.
I hope others will be as short as that, but shorter. Prof, you can go ahead. And I think most of it were comments anyway. There were a few questions that you can.
Yes, there are a few questions there, but let's try to take it this way. Number one is that in terms of the content of the Constitution, I think if we're going to make a Constitution that will allow us to say "we the people," it goes without saying that people should be allowed to put in as much ingredient and as much substance they want in that Constitution. The Constitution that have been successfully done, outside Africa, I think of the Italian Constitution after the Second World War, was a constitution where, there was so much interest, there was so much presentation that people talk about the kind of breakfast they should be eating and whatnot they should be eating. And, the makers of that constitution just understood that they need to patiently listen to all these things and absorb it. And people should know that they've had their day. But in reality, they actually reason on them, which is a very important thing. Allow me with my obsession for today, because that's the title, the same in the Namibian one, because there was a lot of land ownership. What are they going to do? The police force, everybody brought their aspiration and their concern to the table. And that is what allowed a constitution to eventually be called a constitution of the people, we the people, because it is actually bottom up. We voiced our concerns, and that is how we became a constitution. So I think that is important. To the 2,000 plus people that we're talking about, well, the Patriots can help, but I think this is a challenge, is a task for everybody that needs to be done. We need to just keep identifying them. I think I have identified one, so I've done my own quota, at least for now. I think we should just keep identifying them, and hopefully there will be more than that, and it has to be a good spread. There is no constitution that can be a constitution that does not take care of diversity. It simply will not work. If you cannot understand that it is important that once you're thinking of a collective, it is more than one people and one mindset, you're calling for trouble. A constitution that wants to be a constructive compromise, as I've defined it, has to take care of diversity and has to look at it in the face and accommodate it very well. One party state that was being mentioned, I noticed a bit of sarcasm in that question, but I will take it on face value. By nature, we're not one party people. Never mind how we call ourselves brothers and sisters. We are people that like to confront things because we're so diverse, we're so much, and unlike a lot of other Africans, there's a peculiarity about Nigeria is because of how bold and enterprising we can be. If I enter a room and I see Black people loud, I tend to know they're Nigerians. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But you know, that idea that anybody can aspire to anything, America has nothing to teach us from that. We can teach on what it is. Even people who are not qualified for positions tend to aspire for it in Nigeria. So we're not coy at all. Because we're not coy at all, the one-party state thing will not work. But you see, what we have already, and this is a problem, what we have is an elite that is not absolving its role of what elite should be. I am this conversation. I'll be glad to come and have it another day, because I believe that the progressive stance, or shall we say, the progress of a country, and the way to construct a country is if you have confronting and competitive elitism, elites that confront and compete each other, and through this competition and through this confrontation, you will then have growth of that country. We have a conniving, collusive, and conspiratory elite, because while, let's take politics, whilst politicians talk about different political parties and they allow young people, especially the poor ones, to kill themselves in the name of political differences, you just need to see two things. One is when they have the social gathering, they are one party, they enjoy themselves. When you have cases of corruption, you see how close they tend to be. So what we have is an elite that is not confronting and is not competing, but it is conspiring and colluding against our commonwealth. So I think the fear of the one-party state, I do not think is a fear that we should lay just as a fear, or should we put it this way? We should consider it as a fear, but it should not be something we just condemn the ruling party for. It should be a challenge of the opposition to come up with a compelling narrative that will allow people to see gravitate towards them. Because you see, if we link, it is true, it is plausible at least, that the government of the day, the people who have power, might try to manipulate, might try to disorientate, distract the opposition, and overdo them. That is plausible, that can be true, whether we have proof of it or not. But I think whilst we condemn the government of the day, we should also hold the opposition to account to say, you guys need to find a way to be able to get together and provide an alternative, even without having power in your hand. You should be able to look at men and women of substance who, for principle, for conscience, for better idea, will stick together against the government of the day. So that's a leadership failure. And part of I'm talking of failure, one of the comments that was mentioned is where we have failed in many things, starting from 1966, that we were not patient enough. It's just part of the system, it's part of growth. The problem is that, and I go back to somebody was talking about people, not system. Let me shock you. There are a lot of people in Great Britain, in Italy, in Germany who have intended to do. What has not made it possible is that the system makes it ridiculous. When I think it was it 4 years ago? Is it 5 years or 6 years ago now? When people were saying that will Trump leave the place if he loses, I was on radio saying, don't worry, I've been to the White House. I know that when the time comes, most of the cards to enter some room will just expire. The system is built bearing in mind. That's the thing. They've built a system bearing in mind that one day somebody might come in who might go rogue, who might turn mad. That is what system does. You don't rely on people. There is a flaw we have, talking about failures. We build a system waiting for a virtuous person to come into power. It is wrong. We need to learn to build a system, a constitution that is worried about what will happen if the leader turns rogue or turns mad. Thank you.
Taking this time. We'll go on to, I don't see Adetutu Akimbohum anymore, but I'll take Nimi Amakri, Raf Bello Fadile, and Professor Grinch, and David. These are the 4 hands that are up. I don't know if I can appeal that you should keep it short so that we can finish on top of the hour. Thank you. Nimi, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a whole lot of things here, but if I did Byron had addressed the issues of a referendum, which is part of the UK system. UK is actually 4 nations working together as one. But when it comes to things like competition, the World Cup, Olympics, they have their flags and they work. But I think that by and large, our leadership is manifestly dysfunctional and petty, and that's a problem. One of the things that I've always said about the First Republic, that even though we called ourselves a federation, we are in practice actually a confederation of sorts, and it worked very well. So I think we can go back to that. And again, there's the issue of the opposition that Prof mentioned to gather themselves. But when you have a paranoid government leadership, it becomes worrisome. For instance, Professor Patutumi just said, let's have a shadow. It's an innocent thing. Let's have, each office is being managed by somebody in the opposition. How are you guys doing? Let's compare this. And it became paranoid, So it doesn't help us at all. But I think, just to close up, can we have an amendment that would allow an independent candidacy so we don't have people foisted on us through the party that don't even believe in democracy? Then thirdly, I think the INEC appointment should be through the judiciary because they are the most apolitical of the 3 arms of government. So I think if that is possible, it's something that the patriots or whoever is talking to power should begin to advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Nimi. Let's go to Raf Bello Fadile. Thank you, Nimi, for keeping it short.
Yeah, thank you very much. My question to Prof is, will it not be possible to use Section 9 of the current Constitution to bring in some of the features of the 1996 Constitution, that is the Caribbean-wide Constitution, where Caribbean sat in the Constituent Assembly? Part of that Constitution was adopted by General Absalam Abubakar, especially the 4 zones were contained in that 1996 Constitution. Why can't we? Since Section 9 says we can alter, why can't we use that? I'm not sure, to bring in what I think was one of the best, apart from the 1963 Constitution everybody has been mentioning on ground. And then lastly, Trump, this is not the first time Trump is categorizing Nigeria as CPC. He did it in his first time. So why are we lying and pointing fingers at him? We should point fingers at our leaders. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for keeping it short. That was very straight and direct to the point. So I will take David. David, thank you. Keep it short. And I can take Laide. Prof, your hand is no longer up if you want to ask Professor Nike
it's
Green.
up. Yeah, sorry, it should be.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. Right, can I
Yeah,
speak?
No, let David speak first. I'll come to you then, come to
Okay.
Laide.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yes,
you.
we can.
Okay, yeah. I believe personally actually that most of our problems as a country arise from our constitution. We have a very flawed constitution, which there are no number of amendments that can handle it. And I try to study the constitution myself. I'm not a lawyer actually, but I try to study the constitution and then compare it to what other countries have written. What I discover is that the Nigerian constitution is the 2nd largest constitution in the entire world.
Yes.
Second, only to India's constitution. I mean, our constitution is so detailed that rather than being a framework on which to build a country, it has become a straitjacket such that we cannot do anything. Even it's so detailed to the point that it stipulated the number of local governments that can be in a particular state. Now, we are supposed to be a federal country, but it's being run as a unitary system. Now, I believe my question actually goes to the prof, and what I believe is that in changing the constitution, as I say, I'm not a lawyer, so I may not be thinking as a lawyer, but I just have an idea here. Isn't it possible to start off by writing another constitution? I mean, the people, completely independent of our elected leaders, and then we can sell that constitution to the rest of the people in government, in society. Because if we are going to wait for the current elected leaders to do any meaningful changes in the constitution, they might not come to it. So maybe what we might have to do might be to write out the constitution that we believe is fair to all, like the Namibia example that was given, and then sponsor people to go into office, National Assembly, for example, and then vote to adopt that constitution. Is that a possible workaround? Maybe the prof can talk to that.
Answer that. Yes. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Professor Nick. All right. I wanted to take everybody, but more people are coming up.
Thank
Kenneth,
you.
I don't think we can take you. Let me go with Professor Grinch. Please keep it brief, and we'll take Lydie. Maybe that will be the last.
Yeah.
So that
Mine will be very brief.
Thank
you very much, Professor Kila, for a very comprehensive presentation. One thing that occurs to me is this, that there are countries where they don't have a constitution. I mean, like UK, but they have a very, their values are reflected in their practices. So, well, even if we don't have a constitution, or if you have one that is very confusing, etc., we have institutions. A constitution, to my mind, is meant to help us build institutions. And if we look at some of the institutions that we have, they have been sustained through the practice of peer review of their laws. I'm thinking of the academic institutions. So I do believe that we have to look at some kind of alternatives if, unfortunately, we're unable to get a constitution written in in good time. Thank you, Professor Kila, and I enjoy even the personal text that we have. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll take Lydie, the last hand. I will have to apologize to Kenneth and Letitia. There's an after party. Maybe you can join that party and we'll keep on the conversation. Lydie, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Kila. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much for well-presented paper. So given where we are, it looks to me that the options on the table, there's a school of thought of amendments, and another school of thought thinks that government can make it happen, and also that dialogue and involvement of the people is necessary. But from what you said earlier as a solution, that it will be by building institutions by non-contenders. But then going forward, don't you think that the creation of institutions would have to go beyond non-contenders? Because if you look at it, who creates institutions? There's government, there's professionals, there's interested parties in the community, just like this group set up by Pastor Itwe. So if you say about the elite confrontation, can't elite confrontation combine, with government in such a way that the government would have no choice, than to be sensitive and then do the needful,
Yes.
maybe convene. So like it's not, I don't think it's so clear cut, because you just can't have non-contenders, and that's my view, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because since where we are, it would appear that to make it work, there has to be like a joint, I mean, everybody has to be willing and interested enough for us to be able to move forward. So I don't know what your views are on this, but that's what I think giving. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Prof, over to you. And this will be the last set of questions and probably your closing comment as well. And Pastor Itwa will be back. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I think these comments are very useful comments. Your position is a very clear position when you talk about the elite's role. I advocate for confronting competitive elite position that to drive towards progress and development. So when we say non-contenders, the reason why I have the theory of the non-contenders, is that contenders have immediate interest that does not allow them to think, beyond what is good for them now, where they are now. And, it's very naive of them. And I hope anybody does not take offense, because now those in the PDP are understanding what is it to be a minority. They couldn't imagine that, 12 years ago. So non-contenders were able to have that long view. But you're right. Going on, those who manage the system that build the values. My thinking is that if non-contenders can lay the foundation, knowing fully well the qualities and indeed the mischief of contenders, since they are not part of them, since they are beyond or at least outside the fray, they can create something that will curb possible abuses, contenders when it's in charge. And that building is what links me to what Professor Great puts very well in our theory of beyond constitution. The idea that values, cultures, examples, models, and general understanding are something that can even be bigger than constitution is a very big idea, because, and this is where, the limit of humanity is. No matter how strong the constitution is, if people don't believe in it, people don't understand it, if people don't get it, there's still going to be trouble. So overall, values and models, example, and culture are still the pillars, or if you want, the crushes upon which this thing is built up.
Yeah.
There was the idea of somebody who proposed the DIY constitution. We should just go and do it, then get it done. There was, I think, who did I see here? About 20 years, no, maybe less than that. I remember when I first came to Nigeria, and there was we were invited to the house of the late Dr. Tunji Braithwaite, and that was exactly my idea. That why don't we just go and do this constitution, and then persuade other people to join us? I think it's not as simple as that, but that could be a starting point, because once we start talking, we can have some ideas we agree on. Then when the time comes to do the constitution, what will happen is that those ideas would then come to fore and be embraced by the others. But we have to be careful to think we can just do the constitution ourselves. Section 9 was mentioned. It's a good time to remind ourselves that Section 9 of the current constitution is the one that outlines the modality for altering constitutional review. Because Question 9 is a useful tool. The limit of Section 9 is a useful tool, so therefore it should not be discarded. Let me finish that sentence for the record. The limit of Section 9 is that it does not allow for the total overhaul that we want. If we amend the Constitution to a very beautiful thing, and the first sentence of the Constitution still says "with the people," we're still living a lie. So why don't we do a true Constitution of "with the people"? I think, in a way, the legislators of today and the one before them recognize the limit of the constitution they have, and that is why they try to amend it, and that's why they try to do some town hall meetings and consultation. So in a way, that is recognized, but Section 9 is useful, but it's not good enough to do what we really need. What we really need is a new constitution that is born out of deliberation and consultation and referencing the past in order to build the future. You see, it is very important that the constitution is mainly about where it starts and where it ends. Where it starts is exactly where we're able to think of our diversities and our aspiration, and we're able to come up with something that would truly be with the people. It's the beginning of it, and that's very important. The end of the Constitution is the ability of those who make the Constitution to know that the Constitution is a product that shapes the future. It is something that you build today so that your future shall be guided. So that, I think, is a good place for us to look at it. And allow me to say, because constitution is a political matter, that in politics, like in geometry, it is not the size of the shape that defines it, but the precision of the line. It is the way the lines are that makes it a triangle or a rectangle, not the shape of it, not the size of it. So we must think of building a precise kind of constitution to get the kind of country we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Kila, and for that very, very... Lide, is this a new hand or is the old hand?
No. Must be the old hand. Ignore, please. I probably don't even know how to raise or lower. Let me just check. I think it's off now.
All right. Okay, thank you. Is Pastor Eto still on the platform? I think he had an appointment. Maybe he had to leave, and we really want to thank everybody that have been part of this discourse today. Professor Kila, any parting word, anything you want to say in final as we close the session?
Thank you. Thank you for everybody for participating. Thank you for creating a sort of reunion and seeing some good old friends. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Before we go, next week, back office, do we have that poster? We are going to be talking about designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. And we'll be having Professor Bob Destro, who is very experienced, a former diplomat, one that has followed this whole conversation from the first Trump administration. We have decided to take it next week so that tempers can simmer down a bit and people can get more and more information. Because I actually saw a new video, Trump with Buhari. I didn't see that before, where he was telling Buhari that, terrorists are decimating Nigerians, killing Christians, Buhari has to do something. And so this conversation has been on for a long time. I'm sure we'll get more information and we'll be able to make more informed opinions. Next week, we're going to have Professor Destro. We ask everybody to join us, same time, same Zoom, 5 o'clock. We thank everybody. Pastor Ito, are you there? No? I think he had to go for another appointment. So, Professor Kila, thank you very much for your time. We truly appreciate it. And I want to thank all those of you that have joined and have remained even up till now. God bless you. See you again next week, same time on this same platform. God bless. We are disabling the YouTube channel now. And we normally have what we call an after party. Those that wish to stay. So, Professor Kila, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Professor Kila.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kila. You are one of the 2,800 people, I think, that we need.
Indeed.
We should add you and Yemizin and some Kuti, so that would be 3.
Yes.
Here we go. Thank you very much.
You want to see some fireworks between the two of us in a group. You didn't answer my question about stakeholder engagement. How can we institutionalize it so that we get our people involved at the very grassroots levels?
Well, and then very quickly, I think it's fundamental. I think we just have to make it a practice. I think I will go with what Professor Great said, that it should be a practice, maybe not put it as a law. We should just have a culture, which some people tried, but I think they just stopped. Like, every 100 days they'll make. But there's something I would like, though. For example, our parliamentarians